Trends that are grooming your children. Hello, Ben. It's been a while. You know what? Why not? Sure, 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 sure.
Well, there's a word you're not allowed to say in social media anymore. It's a word that has become absolutely forbidden. That word, of course, is groomer. If you say the word groomer, this means that you are some sort of bigot. Now, the word groomer does have
How is that forbidden? Elon Musk just bought Twitter and said basically, yeah, say it as much as you want.
gays and lesbians prey on children who have decided that radical gender and sexual ideology must be taught to children, that the way that you create a better world is by indoctrinating them in the rules of tolerance. And when they mean tolerance, what they mean is sexual confusion, sexual fluidity.
They love that term sexual confusion. I feel like you have, it's like a 2-second bit if you talk to a kid. Like, well, do trans people exist? Oh, you know your Uncle Steve? Well, actually, she now goes by Aunt May. And sometimes that's it. Boys can be girls, girls can be boys. The funny thing is, the language they use now with gender confusion is actually identical to the historical language that people have employed to shame like non-traditional gender roles. So they used to use the term gender confusion with like the idea of a guy taking care of the kids at home or like a woman working. Back during the suffragette movement at the turn of the 20th century, the idea that of like, oh, a woman working and a man staying at home, well, this is confusing. You can't teach children this. This will ruin the comfortable stability of their understanding of how the world works. This is fundamentally the same thing. And again, there's no like empirical argument that you can make for how acknowledging trans people exist is harmful to kids or acknowledging that gay people exist is harmful to kids. They can never really describe this outside of some nebulous gender or sexual confusion that they seem to feel, which feels like a self-report to me.
If there's a human cost to quote unquote tolerance, and we don't mean tolerance as in we won't hurt you, we mean tolerance as in what you are doing is morally acceptable and praiseworthy. If the cost of that is confusing a bunch of young children, if the cost of that,
I don't understand where this confusion, like they keep projecting this confusion outward. If they're confused, I know Ben pretends to be confused because for like 8 years now, he's been doing the whole sex and gender are the same thing, except when I acknowledge they're different. But every time we have this convo, I'm going to pretend everyone else means they're the same thing. If he's confused, he can ask, but it doesn't, yeah. You know, guys, aren't kids supposed to be a bit confused when they go to school? You are supposed to learn new things there. That's kind of the point. I remember taking math classes. Yeah.
is giving kids a chaotic picture of life that they are not ready for. If the cost of that,
They never explain this, by the way. Never. Chaotic. They open them up to untold avenues of social creation. They're not ready. And the thing they're not ready for is like, yeah, sometimes boys like boys and girls like girls. They're not ready. You know that stereotype of like the mom who sees two guys holding their hands and she shields her children's eyes and she's like, how will I explain this to my kids? And she's obviously freaking out more than her kids are. The kids are just like confused by their mom's behavior, you know?
because you have to wonder why it is that so many administrators and teachers are not only going along with this sort of ideological and sexual grooming.
Notice how he still hasn't explained what they mean. He just keeps saying like grooming, confusion, radical ideology. Like what? What ideas, you know? It reminds me of when I talked to Charlie Kirk about this, and right off the bat, he realized there was a point he wasn't going to defend. So he acknowledged that critical race theory wasn't being taught to kids. You guys remember that? Like right off the bat. He was like, okay, so when I say critical race theory, I don't mean like the definition of critical race theory. I mean like some other stuff. Yeah, and like right off the bat, he threw that for. It's like, you know, I knew if I talked to Ben, I'd be okay. So what do you mean by radical gender ideology? Well, the idea that boys can be boys, girls can be, yes. So the idea that trans people exist. Okay, just say that. Just say that. Teaching children that trans people exist.
Why exactly they are doing this sort of stuff? You have to wonder why they're so enthusiastic about it, because that's what's really amazing about all of this.
To me, the real enthusiasm is from the conservative crowd, not from them. Like, conservatives have literally dedicated their entire political party, their multi-billion-dollar collective media platform, and the time and attention of their audiences to a non-stop cavalcade of trans ideology fear-mongering. I really don't think it's people on the left. It's a lot like the trans bathroom bill shit. Like, people said the left was freaking out of the trans bathroom bill. No, they weren't. The right was the one proposing the bills preventing trans people from using the right restrooms. Like, nobody else was doing anything. The left was just chilling, and then the right started freaking out and created a moral panic over it, you know?
Is that we went from, we just want whatever we want in the privacy of our own bedroom, to we must teach your kids actively because the institute.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. We did the exact same thing with miscegenation. The initial claim was just let black and white people quietly live their lives together. We're not bothering anyone. But that wasn't the real thing they believed, because in reality, that's a cucked position. The real position is actually miscegenation is fine, and everyone should know that. And then they went about in the schools saying stuff like, you can love whoever you want. It's fine. Don't let race get in the way. And conservatives freaked out about that at the time, and a lot of them still do today. Yeah. But yes, of course, they will continue to move towards the morally correct position if they're given the power to do so.
And that means we have to grab them at the earliest possible age and indoctrinate them in our viewpoint as to sexual fluidity and sexual orientation and gender identity. And we have to do that at the earliest possible without the parents involved. In fact, because
that is how school works. Yes, they go to school. Yep. Parents aren't at school. They're usually working at the time. Yep. Just so much of the conservative fear-mongering is just finding spooky ways of saying stuff that is completely unobjectionable. Radical gender and sexual ideology. You mean like the trans and gay people exist? Okay. Without the parents' involvement, it is a school. It's a school. It's a school. Yeah. Also, I know that conservatives are very intent in convincing us that like liberal educators are engaging in a nonstop 24/7 effort to do nothing but teach kids about trans people. And that's facilitated in large part by things like libs of TikTok, where, in a country of 350 million, they like once every couple of days, they'll find a video of some like preschool teacher with blue hair, like maybe being a bit over enthusiastic and saying something empirically correct to a bunch of children. I really do not think your average young person is getting just non-stop info dumped on with any of this stuff. Not to say any of this stuff is wrong. I just think they're mostly learning like their, I don't know, multiplication tables. I don't know. Probably. Would be hard to make American education much worse than it already was.
You can see that the amount of LGBTQ plus identification among the younger generation is now in excess of 20%, like 1/5.
And there it is, right off the bat. So if we apply a little bit of logic to this, just a smidgen, you might also note that miscegenation and interracial relationships also skyrocketed in frequency after desegregation and the passage of the Civil Rights Act. Also, when we got rid of anti-miscegenation laws. So it might be that if you are more socially permissive towards groups of people that have historically been discriminated against, you might see that like happen more often. Maybe, possibly. The thing is, they will always frame this as like a grooming trend because they treat it like a social contagion. To them, being gay or trans is an illness or a deficiency that is very rare on its own and caused predominantly by abuse. It's a psychological trauma thing, So if it's happening more and more and more, that's a bad thing, and it means that more people are being influenced to that extent. Of course, this is nonsense. Completely ridiculous, ahistorical, absurd assessment of the situation. In reality, yeah, if people understand that being gay or being, bi or whatever is an option, they're more likely to take that. In the absence of any demonstrated harm, you're going to have to explain to me why this is an issue. Look, gotta be honest with you guys. They say being gay is a social contagion. I'm going to hit you with it. Everything is. Everything is a social contagion. Everything that we define ourselves to be, whether we imagine ourselves to be of a given race, gender identity, sexuality, our religion, or any aspect of our demographic identity outside of stuff that can be empirically directly measured, like our height or whatever, is a social contagion in the sense that our proximity to other people within that group will heavily determine whether or not we're a part of it. That's how everything works. If you want little political ideology, yeah, it's literally like a mimetic evolution of human behavior. This is a normal way that humans behave. That's not that's not that's not weird. So you need to describe how exactly it's bad or harmful, because it seems like a lot of harm can be demonstrated with keeping gay and trans people in the closet. We have evidence going back an incredibly, like for as long as we have been tracking this, we know that people who are socially ostracized for being queer have suffered enormously, and that it's better that they don't. So we have evidence that things are better for them if they're allowed to openly express their identity. Do we have any evidence that it's harmful that they be allowed to openly express their identity? And the answer to that is no, they don't, because if they did have any evidence, I would have seen it by now, because they would have been screaming about it from the rooftops. If there was any evidence that a higher preponderance of gay or trans people in the younger generations was socially harmful, they would have shown it already. Trust me, you know?
When you see public school administrators who are saying quite openly that they are indoctrinating kids into the wide variety of sexual pleasures available to them at the age of 13 or 14 with any partner of any kind. It's all morally equivalent. And anybody who says different, shut up, you bigot.
Yeah, wait. Yes. Yes, it is morally equivalent to be gay or to be straight. That's what he just said. Like, yes, it is bigoted to say there's a moral difference between being in a heterosexual or a homosexual relationship. You are correct. You've got that one. Yes, because they're equal. So that's good. Never forget that underneath all the fear-mongering, the fundamental tenet of behavior that Ben is taking issue with here is equality. He wants to maintain a perceived and completely non-empirical, I mean, no evidence provided, perception of heterosexuality being not only the default, but also the morally right option, to which other options are deviant, corrupt, ill, or something else.
And there's only one reason for that. And it is because you are trying to indoctrinate them. You're trying to change how they think. They're trying to change how they act.
Educators trying to change how students think and act? Heavens to Betsy. Let me just briefly look up the definition of education in a dictionary.
Now, your chief goal, by the way, as a parent, is to protect the innocence of your kids.
That is not... Whoa. That's very weird. Your chief goal as a parent is not to protect the innocence of your kids. That's fucking weird. You have a lot of goals as a parent. Protecting your... It's parenting. You want to make sure they're educated. You want to make sure they're, like, you know, morally upstanding, right? You don't want kids that are, like, really mean or rude or whatever. They have to be healthy. You want them to be happy, right? That's a big one. Protecting the innocence. I don't even... That's just so fucking weird. It's so fucking weird. Their attitude is so fucking weird, dude. It's so fucking gross.
And you're ruining the innocence of your kids if you teach them right from wrong. Right and wrong are biases. Right and wrong are forms of discrimination because you're discriminating against behavior.
What?
And that ruins innocence, because innocence is you look at everything with a naive eye.
Okay, this is very weird. This is just rambling. This is what I mean by Ben Shapiro knows when he's lying. Again, he's a smart guy. He knows when he's lying. This, like, they want to take away your kid's innocence by arguing that nothing is right or wrong, except they do think it's right to be tolerant, but right, it's completely incoherent on its own terms. This is why I have so little respect for conservatives. It's not just that they're lied to. The video is internally inconsistent. You just have to think a bit, you know?
Radical gender and sexual ideology must be taught to children.